Movie review: Romeo and Juliet, 1996. Directed by Baz Luhrmann, Romeo and Juliet, 1996, is a modern retelling of William Shakespeare's iconic tragedy Romeo and Juliet. The film stars Leonardo DiCaprio as Romeo and Claire Danes as Juliet, and reimagines the original play in a contemporary setting, while still maintaining Shakespeare's original dialogue. Set in the fictional Verona Beach, the movie blends the classic story of star-crossed lovers with a stylized, urban world full of bright colors, fast cars, and gun violence. The plot of the movie closely follows Shakespeare's original play, with the rivalry between the Montagues and Capulets being transplanted to a modern-day urban setting. Romeo, a Montague, meets and falls in love with Juliet, a Capulet, at a party. Despite their family's violent feud, they decide to marry in secret. The conflict between the two families escalates, leading to tragic consequences. What makes Luhrmann's adaptation unique is how it marries Shakespeare's 16th-century language with late 20th century visuals, creating a striking contrast that defines the film's style. One of the standout aspects of Romeo and Juliet is its bold and eclectic visual style. Baz Luhrmann is known for his flamboyant and highly stylized direction, and this film is no exception. From the opening sequence, where the prologue is delivered as a news broadcast, to the gunfights filmed with fast-paced, dynamic camera movements, the film is a sensory overload. The film makes extensive use of bright neon colors, graffiti, and MTV-inspired editing techniques, which give the story a hyper-real, surreal quality. The setting of Verona Beach is a fusion of different cultural and aesthetic influences, blending the chaos of a modern metropolis with religious and classical symbolism. The Capulets and Montagues are portrayed as two wealthy, mafia-like families, complete with heavily armed bodyguards. The film juxtaposes images of Catholicism, with crosses and icons scattered throughout the scenes, with the grittiness of gang violence, creating a world where the sacred and the profane collide. The heightened visual style of the film complements the passionate, impulsive nature of its central characters, underscoring the emotional intensity of Romeo and Juliet's love story. Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes deliver standout performances as the star-crossed lovers. DiCaprio, who was already gaining recognition as a talented young actor at the time, brings a brooding yet vulnerable intensity to Romeo. His portrayal is marked by youthful idealism and emotional depth, making his Romeo both reckless and sincere. DiCaprio's ability to convey raw emotion, whether in scenes of romantic yearning or in moments of grief, makes him a compelling lead. Claire Danes' portrayal of Juliet contrasts beautifully with DiCaprio's Romeo. Danes brings a more grounded, thoughtful quality to her performance, making Juliet less impulsive and more introspective than some traditional portrayals. Her expressions of love and innocence feel authentic, and she captures the tragic naivete of a young girl caught between loyalty to her family and her overwhelming love for Romeo. The chemistry between Danes and DiCaprio is electric, their connection palpable from the first moment they meet at the Capulet party. Supporting performances also stand out. Harold Perrineau, as Mercutio, steals many scenes with his exuberant and flamboyant performance. His portrayal of Romeo's close friend is lively and wild, bringing an almost manic energy to Mercutio's character, which makes his eventual death all the more poignant. John Leguizamo also shines as Tybalt, giving the Capulet enforcer a fierce, menacing presence. His anger and disdain toward the Montagues is palpable, and his confrontations with Romeo and Mercutio are charged with tension. One of the most daring aspects of Luhrmann's adaptation is its use of Shakespeare's original language in a modern-day setting. While many adaptations of Romeo and Juliet choose to update the dialogue along with the setting, Luhrmann makes the bold choice to retain the Elizabethan English. This creates a striking juxtaposition between the old and the new. The language is delivered with rapid-fire energy, often at odds with the flashy visuals, which gives the film a unique rhythm. While some critics argue that this contrast can be jarring, especially for those unfamiliar with Shakespearean language, it also adds to the film's unique charm. The heightened language combined with the frenetic, stylized direction creates a surreal experience, almost like watching a Shakespearean play performed in the middle of a modern urban landscape. At times, however, the rapid delivery and intense action sequences can make the dialogue difficult to follow, particularly for viewers less accustomed to Shakespearean verse. Yet, the actors' emotional performances often convey the meaning of the lines, even when the language itself feels challenging. While the core themes of Romeo and Juliet, love, family loyalty, violence, and fate remain intact, Luhrmann's version adds a modern interpretation to these elements. The decision to set the story in a contemporary urban landscape heightens the relevance of the family feud, recontextualizing it within a world of gang violence and corporate rivalry. The guns, styled with the names of swords engraved on them, highlight how senseless and brutal the violence between the families has become, reflecting the destructive consequences of modern-day warfare and territorial disputes. The film also emphasizes the impulsivity and recklessness of young love. Romeo and Juliet's romance unfolds in a whirlwind of passion and danger, with the modern setting underscoring how quickly their decisions escalate into tragedy. The visual style, with its quick cuts and heightened color palette, mirrors the intensity and speed of their love story, making the tragic outcome feel both inevitable and heartbreaking. Religious imagery plays a prominent role throughout the film. Crosses, church settings, and religious iconography are omnipresent, drawing attention to the tension between love and fate. This imagery underscores the fatalistic aspect of the story, reminding viewers that Romeo and Juliet's love is doomed from the start. The frequent use of Catholic symbols also adds a layer of irony, as the characters' violent actions seem at odds with the moral and ethical values suggested by the religious motifs. While Romeo and Juliet 1996 is highly praised for its bold visual style and performances, it is not without its criticisms. Some critics argue that the film's flashy aesthetics and rapid pacing overshadow the emotional depth of the original play. The relentless pace, combined with the stylized direction, can sometimes detract from the quieter, more introspective moments of the story. For example, some of the more subtle aspects of Shakespeare's text may be lost in the spectacle, making it harder for audiences to connect with the emotional undercurrents of the characters' relationships. Another common criticism is that the film's modernized elements can feel excessive at times. While the contemporary setting is meant to give the story a new edge, certain choices, like the over-the-top depiction of the Montague and Capulet families as rival gangs, can come across as melodramatic or even campy. These elements may feel gimmicky to some viewers, detracting from the gravity of the story's tragic conclusion. Additionally, the juxtaposition of Shakespearean language with a modern setting has divided audiences. While some appreciate the fusion, others find it jarring, feeling that the dialogue doesn't always mesh well with the contemporary visuals and action. This can make the film difficult to follow, particularly for viewers who are less familiar with Shakespeare's language or who expect a more traditional adaptation. Despite its polarizing elements, Romeo and Juliet 1996 has had a lasting cultural impact. It introduced a new generation to Shakespeare, blending pop culture with classical literature in a way that made the story accessible and exciting for younger audiences. The film's soundtrack, featuring contemporary artists like Radiohead and Garbage, further enhanced its appeal to the MTV generation. Leonardo DiCaprio's performance as Romeo helped solidify his status as a rising star in Hollywood, and the film's success paved the way for more unconventional Shakespeare adaptations in the years to come. It also showcased Baz Luhrmann's distinct directorial style, which he would continue to develop in later films like Moulin Rouge! 2001, and The Great Gatsby, 2013. Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet 1996 is a daring and visually striking adaptation that reimagines Shakespeare's classic tragedy for a modern audience. While its fast-paced, MTV-inspired aesthetic may not be to everyone's taste, the film's bold fusion of old and new, combined with strong performances from Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, makes it a memorable and unique interpretation of one of literature's most famous love stories. Though not without its flaws, it stands as an innovative and influential film that continues to resonate with viewers nearly 3 decades after its release.